August Black is my guest this week, and he is proud dad to a 5-year-old Beau who has overcome all kinds of life hurdles from the moment she arrived Earthside. After spending 66 days in the NICU, she was able to come home and is now co-parented with her dad and her mom in different places. It is a wonderful, robust conversation that you don't want to miss. Welcome to the Becoming Baby Ready podcast, your podcast for queer family planning. My name is Sam, and throughout this podcast, you'll hear me have conversations with professionals who work alongside people who want to start and grow their families, as well as parents of intentionally created families. Everyone I speak to identifies as being part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. This is your opportunity to learn answers to questions you didn't even know you had. Welcome, everyone. I'm really excited today. I'm chatting with August. So welcome, August. Please tell everyone who you are and about the members of your family.
Hi, thank you so much, Sam. I'm really excited to be here today. My name is August Black. I am a dad to a 5-year-old daughter. I also have 2 dogs and a cat, and it keeps my house very busy. I'm also a single parent slash co-parent, so managing dynamics in that way. And I'm also a trans man, so I've kind of delved into the world of parenting in a unique way, and but I love it just the same.
Excellent. So tell me about your daughter. She's 5. And
Mhm.
when we talked off mic and we were getting to know each other a couple of weeks ago, you talked about the fact that the birth was earlier than anticipated. And
Mhm.
so her start to life was pretty difficult. And I think that that's a piece of parenting that not a lot of people actually share with one another because babies do come. I mean, you saw it. You were in a NICU with your daughter. You know that there are other babies in there that come early. How do parents navigate that? What is that experience? Aside from being terrifying and overwhelming, what is
Mhm.
that experience like for parents?
Oh man, well, Bo spent 66 days in the NICU, which
Wow.
is a long time when you
Yeah.
think about it. And she was between 28 and 30 weeks, so they weren't entirely sure her age. She looked a little bit older, I
Mhm.
guess, physically, but she was so small. She was 3 pounds even. And I think that like the NICU phase in life is more of a vortex. I think that that's kind of the best way to explain it. I feel like my experience is maybe a little bit different than expecting parents because Bo was a surprise. And so, when you dive into parenting in general, it's daunting, but then you dive into parenting with a child who you may or may not know what their life is going to look like as they get older. And
Mhm.
so there's so much weight attached to every little moment. Um, there's also magic in it too. I think that you connect with the women. I mean, most of the NICU nurses were women who work there that are just like they're just they're incredible, and they do this work on these tiny living human beings that are they're so small and so fragile, and you get to see that in a different way and appreciate it in a different way because it matters so much because they're loving your kid when you're not there. No, when Bo was born, it was 2021. So in LA, we were still peak pandemic.
Yep.
So her mom and I could only visit separately for the first month. So there was a lot of, um, we both, I think for us and from what the nurses said, we both just spent as much time as we could there.
Yeah.
I spent 2 hours, then her mom spent 2 hours, and we just kind of switched off and gave her as much time and skin to skin contact and conversation as you possibly can because these babies are alone in a way that is very different than not being in a NICU. They have a very different first initial part of life. Um, and I see that showing up in ways now that you don't expect.
Mm.
Struggling with doctors' offices, struggling with instruments, um, And they pediatricians see it all the time. They say like kids who spend a good amount of time in the NICU can have like medical PTSD from that experience because the loving touch is different. You know, these nurses are amazing, but they're also doing their job and keeping them alive. Um, so I don't know if that entirely answers your question. I think NICU parents are badass.
Yeah. And I've met some, and I have to say that I agree. You have to have a fortitude that going into parenting you didn't necessarily anticipate having. And as you say, Bo was a surprise. So it's a fortitude that you had to find that you didn't even know you were going to need.
Yeah. And it kind of kept taking weird turns. You know, about a month into Bo's NICU stay, she was doing super, super well. And then they took her off of the feeding tubes and she started having these episodes where when she would drink, when you're a fetus and you're in your last month, you learn how to drink and breathe at the same time. But when you come out so early, you don't get that biological lesson.
Yeah.
And so she would have these episodes where they syncope episodes where she would stop breathing and then she'd turn blue and her heart rate would drop completely and then they'd have to stimulate her and get her back. And so that's what like started the testing. And then the testing revealed new results. And, you know, we were given those results in a room with 5 chairs and our chairs and 5 doctors. And everyone sat down and was like, this is your new reality. You know, she's got damage here. There's this here. Um, you're most likely, you know, going to have a non-walking, non-communicative kid moving forward.
Wow.
And like that was a whole new set of expectation. I mean, that just like, you know, you're not expectation is the wrong word, but like I think hope is like a completely, you know, those kids are just as amazing, but I think you have this idea of what it's going to look like. And when you jump into something and you're like, okay, I'm going to accept this as my new life because I can see this, like I can see what this is going to look like and I can fall in love with this version of life. I can do that. And then you're kind of wading through this really kind of deep pool of the NICU and then there's these things that start happening that are terrifying. I mean, she had one with me that was longer than made anyone comfortable, and I didn't go back for 2 days. I was like terrified. I was like I need a second. Like this is really scary. Um, and so when we got those results, um, I think that there was like this moment of peace just to accepting her exactly how she was,
Mhm.
that she was a miracle in herself anyway. And that was totally fine. And like, we were just going to kind of move forward and accept exactly how she was and just kind of start preparing for what she would need.
Yeah.
Um, and she kind of just continued to be a little miracle. You know, she was in physical therapy 4 to 5 days a week from the moment she came home till she was 1 and she graduated. And like every step of the way, they're like, this is not what we thought. This is not what her results say. This is not like they all kind of assumed that she was going to kind of fall into this diagnosis, but she just kind of just didn't. She just kind of kept proving them wrong and kept learning in her own way and sticking to it. And I think, you know, I think that there's a part where she's just incredibly lucky.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And so where is Bo now? I mean, I don't mean physically where is Bo on the planet, but in terms of developmental progress and what she can and can't do compared to kids her age, how is she navigating this world?
She is fine. I mean, she has a very very mild case of cerebral palsy. That her neurologist is like, yeah, there's some weak muscle tone along her left side, and so that would classify in that. Well, the original concerns were 2 different things. So she had polymicrogyro, which is on one side, um, and that can cause like severe seizure disorders. But she never got a seizure between 0 and 3. And in those years, we had to keep her home. She was not allowed to go to daycare or school because she needed to be monitored so that if she would have one, it wouldn't be missed. And we kept up with every 6 month neuro visits and stuff now. Um, and then with the other injury, they originally thought that she had kind of had an injury to one part of her brain that was the learning center of her brain. But as she grew, it turned out that it was probably closer to like the vision center. And so
Mm.
she may or may not have like little black kind of missing spots. But according to um, her last MRI, her brain is just kind of grown around these spots, and it was very small. And little Nicky babies move when you do the MRIs, and things can change and alter. So, on that aspect, I mean, I think that she is relatively, I hate the word, but like relatively normal in terms
Right.
of development. She struggles with food, which we do weekly occupational therapy stuff for it. She's very, very small. So she's like, she's 5, but she wears like 3 to 4 T clothes. And she's just little, but her mom's really little. So I think that kind of also compares, that fits right in there.
Yeah.
Um, when it comes to like, yeah, so she's not she's I mean, she's very much so smart and so fast and mentally, and she's got really great hand-eye coordination. um she's timid physically. We've kind of always noticed that. Like she keeps herself within what she thinks she's capable of. So kind of pushing her outside of that,
Right.
and pushing her physically to kind of like, jump off this thing or jump onto this thing, and kind of pushing her body a little bit more.
Hmm.
But also like she likes taking things at her own pace, which we kind of give her that space to do too.
Yeah. That's a
But yeah.
lot of, I mean, she's probably has an awareness about her body and about her capabilities
Mhm.
more than other children her age would have because of the testing she's had and the doctors she's seen and the therapy she's had to experience, right? So
Yeah.
it does make her wise beyond her years about a lot of different things.
Yeah, even when you say that, like, the first thing that popped into my head was how she learned how to walk. She never fell. She never fell when she learned how to walk. She didn't walk early, but I think around like 11 months or so, she just started doing squats.
Oh,
And she would just like stand there, and she would do squats, and like she would like move one foot forward and squat, and then move it back and squat. And she just kind of like, she'd let go, but she was always very like, she just kind of like knew what she was doing. It was
yeah.
very interesting. It was like, but she never, I think that some babies will take like a step or two and like fall forward.
Yeah.
And like but she was like, I think she always wanted to know she could do it before it happened, right? And for this instance, she just kept doing that. Like she just for a month and a half, and then one day she just walked across the kitchen, the living room carpet, and it wasn't, there was no stumble. It was just
Right.
like doot, 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 and we were just like, and I swear she looked at her. She's like, "Yeah, I can do this now. It's fine.
That's it. It's almost like, okay, so we're walking now. Good to
We're
know.
walking now. It's all good. Let's do it." Yeah, but yeah, very like, yeah. She wasn't a big crawler, so she just really went from like scooting around and then figuring it out.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
and with the fear that you have when she's first born, so new, and being told that there's a good probability that she's going to have these obstacles she's going to have to try to overcome in her life. As a parent, you worry about what the world will look like for her, and then to see her achieve these goals with really kind of a, oh yeah, I can do that. It must feel so deeply satisfying as a parent to witness that.
Yeah, I think Bo has always left me in awe, just from like her, like she just is, I mean, so unexpected, and just such a little fighter. And like to see her, she's in school right now, and I think every parent, when they drop their kid off at like preschool, they're like nervous and whatnot. But she's just she's just great. I mean, she's just such a good kid. So I think there's just a pride that I don't know if you get to really own it. I think like, because
Mm,
they do it on their own,
yeah.
but to just witness it is a gift.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And then you add a layer into this that you and her mom aren't a couple. together
Yeah.
anymore. And so you're trying to do this as co-parents. How do you navigate this world as co-parents of a child who has needed a lot of hands-on parenting to get her to where she is these days?
Oh man, that's it's the co-parenting is really difficult. And I think that where a lot of people can go down the wrong path is that their feelings matter more than the co-parent dynamic.
Hmm.
And I was my parents are divorced, but I was older. Um, and it still super affected me. But I
Hmm.
also watched how it affected my siblings and the relationships my siblings had with their parents, their relationships with each other, um, and the dynamics, how quickly like dynamics like that can shift. Um, and so when it comes to like co-parenting now, I think that it's like I think that one thing that I always wanted to put forward was like, okay, we're in this. So how are we going to be in this and make sure that everyone's happy? Like everyone is happy, and there's a give and take as well with it, and I'm still navigating what that looks like. Um, but when it comes to Bo's needs or her doctor's appointments or anything like that, it's just like common and considerate communication towards each other as a parent, not as an ex, but as a parent, and making that like the priority. Um, but again, it's not easy, and I think it's not easy because when you are a co-parent, you're a single parent.
Yeah.
You might have a buddy, but every moment that you're parenting, I'm parenting alone. I'm not
Yeah.
parenting with someone to be like, hey, I need 5 minutes. I need you to take care of this. Like I do all of my, everything that needs to be done in my house. I'm the person that gets it done. Anything that needs to be done for Bo during my time that's my responsibility. So I think that I think I think people tend to talk a lot about how like to there's like certain ways to do co-parenting or whatnot, but you kind of forget like you might be a co-parent, but on that, if I've got 75% of the time, then 75% of the time I'm a single dad.
Hmm.
And like that, I think that is like the hardest part is that you're really doing this and frustration and dealing with your own feelings and parenting. And there's the other side of it is like making sure you guys are aligned on the same, same direction, same consequences of bet like if you're not doing this, same ideals of iPad time and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That is huge because in a relationship, the dynamics of a relationship where people are in the same house together and are a couple, it's often that they have different opinions about this. But then to have a child that's not living with both parents all of the time, how do you find that? Yeah, like you say, iPad time. In one house, it's this. So hopefully in that house, it's that because you're trying to be consistent for the sake of the child. It's not about the parents. It's for the sake of the child.
Yeah, and I think there's also like acknowledging, you can only control what's in your house
Yes.
and owning that too, because that is I think that's like a big part of like letting go in the co-parenting dynamic. It's like mommy's house might look like this and daddy's house is going to look like this, and the child is going to, I mean, they adapt, but also this isn't easy for her. And I
Yeah.
think that that's kind of where sometimes when we have really tough weeks, I have to remember that like, you know, she's always going from one safe space to a different safe space. So it's like, but they don't look the same. Like I've got two dogs and a cat in my house, but mommy's got no animals. So there's like a different, there's different stimulations and there's different expectations. We do daily dog walks every day. We get back, we go on a walk. And not all the time she wants to do that. But I was like, this is our responsibility. Like this is required of us because we have these things that we have to take care of.
Hmm.
And so I think both homes teach her different things, and controlling what you teach her is like the thing that I remember the most of like how I try to lead in my own parenting journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on for just a moment. We'll be right back. I don't know about you, but I love being able to support queer business wherever possible. Here are 10 of the businesses I've connected with over the last couple of years. The first is Conscious Leadership Academy, and you can find them at lauriesolpizio.com. littlebondco.com, birthmarksupport.com, everydonation.com, fertilitylawcanada.com, understorycafe.com, heygaddies.com, gwkacademy.org, informedfertility.ca, and knifeyspoony.com. To learn more and visit these websites, check out the bottom of the show notes over all of the episodes in the coming weeks. I want to add you've added another layer though, when you were describing yourself and talking about who you are, and that is that you are a trans man. So
Mhm.
you have a child that you weren't anticipating with someone that you're not still connected to romantically. So you're co-parenting, and now you're navigating a healthcare system. And to be fair, as the parent of a child who was born as prematurely as Bo was, you have navigated a lot of healthcare systems through, throughout her short life. How have you navigated that as a trans man? Have you found that you've been just accepted, this is, I'm just her dad and that's all that matters here, and everybody's been pretty good about that? Or has that been another obstacle that you've had to try and figure out how to overcome without it impacting Bo in any way?
So I think that my experience is, I am a very stealth trans guy. And if you don't know what that means someone who can pass as a
Yeah.
cisgender
Yeah.
person. So I would say that almost 100% of Bo's life, I have not had to make that a conscious, like, that's not, I don't lead that in her medical care. Um, I kind of just don't mention it at all unless it's necessary.
Right.
So she had a bunch of genetic testing. And so they needed to know that genetically, me getting tested had no impact on her results. And so those are moments that and I think that, that's a lot of, I appreciate that in this experience because there's not questioning on whether or not I can make these decisions and, my rights in this. And I get to kind of lead as her dad, which has been a blessing, really,
Mm-hmm.
because healthcare system for trans people in general and the world that we're living in right now for trans people is questioning our legitimacy, and so not having to do that within my own within Bo's healthcare journey has been a relief.
I would think, but I would also, and I don't know because I'm not a trans individual, I've not lived any kind of a trans experience. In your life, you have to become a trans man, you have had to employ the support and services of healthcare providers. So you have had to find somebody who will respect who you are and listen to what you say and treat you with dignity and kindness and give you the care that you need. You would not be alone if you were to say, I struggled a lot to find that. I had to fight my way forward through that. And there was a lot of trauma associated with it. And so, if
Oh,
that is your experience, then having to navigate the healthcare system, even though, as you say, you're stealth, and I see you, I've talked to you. Yes, I would assume meeting you, unless you told me that you're trans, that you are a cisgendered man.
yeah.
But how does any of that, any of your own personal traumatic history with that, filter in when you realize, okay, I'm going to have to figure this out? Or does it? Or do you just have to say, no, I'm compartmentalizing? That's that. This is this. We have to move forward because it's just what we have to do.
I think there is a decent amount of compartmentalization for that. My experience in healthcare has never been super smooth. Before I transitioned, I was a very masculine woman. I was misgendered constantly, even before I recognized my identity, in hospital settings, outside of hospital settings. I mean, since I was young. And so I think that that space and doctors in general can kind of bring up that fear.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I had an experience at a hospital in Utah. I was a couple of broken ribs. The doctor wouldn't even touch me to examine my ribs, and like I flew there because that's where my health insurance was. Because I was like, I need these to be looked at just to make sure that they're healing properly, and like, we wouldn't do it. And I was like, okay. And like, it was like, all right, then that's my experience. Now, I've recently found an incredible healthcare team for the first time in my life, and I'm in my 30s. I found a healthcare team that I trust, that make me feel like a person, which is amazing. But it always hasn't been that way, and so I think that because of that fear, I do keep it in its own box and try not to let it pour into anything that Bo might need, um, because it could change the way the healthcare provider could talk to me about my daughter, or what question whether or not I can make decisions or have conversations with them. So, when I have mentioned that I'm not her biological father, that's just kind of how I say it. And I was like, oh, I'm not biologically her father, and that kind of takes, I think, like the stigma away, because I think that people have like there's a very big cloud of stigma that surrounds the trans identity and trans people in general. And so just saying it that way, I think it's like being honest, but not making myself vulnerable to changes of perception.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's something that I kind of have to watch. Yeah.
That makes sense. It, but that also raises another question for me, because you live in the US, and generally speaking, members of the 2S LGBTQIA plus community who are having families end up needing to do a second parent or step parent adoption process to be able to be legally recognized as the parents. Is that a step that you and your ex have had to take to ensure your continued parentage of Bo?
Yeah, it's a step we're going through right now. My ex is incredibly supportive of it. We're both on the same page in it. It's a process.
Yeah.
So it's just a long process, and it's one that I am a little scared of, because I don't want them to say no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want them to say no, and because we're not together, it complicates it. The complicates the process. Now, I was there when Bo was born. I'm on her birth certificate. In California, you can sign as a non-biological parent um, for that, and so that's just kind of what we did. And so, but and to ensure just like future, any issues to arise, that is something that I need to feel just secure in
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
And she was born in California, and you now live on the opposite coast. Is that a decision that happened for, did did you and your ex move back to the East Coast together as a couple and then separate, or did you decide? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We were in LA. Once Bo was born, I was working like 100 hours a week just to pay rent. And it wasn't sustainable. And Bo's mom was struggling with some mental health stuff. And we just kind of didn't have the support that we needed. Um, and so the idea was to come back to Rhode Island and hopefully find that. And it didn't necessarily work out the way that I envisioned, but I'm finding my footing here and kind of readjusting to the reality. And if you've never been to Rhode Island, it's beautiful. It's very small, so it feels like a town. People are like, it's a city. I was like, this is a town. This is a small town. There's 3 grocery stores. This is not a city. but um, but it is beautiful, and I you go to a playground and it's clean.
Yeah.
It's clean and it feels safe, and not like it's like not at every place is safe, but it feels very different. And Bo loves the rain, and I missed it too. I forgot how much I enjoyed that. So, yeah, the move was big. It was a
Yeah.
big move.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A cross country move at any time is a big move, and then doing it with a child, and trying to figure out how you, because when you get to where you're going to have to establish a new healthcare system,
yeah,
and setting up the people that you need to have in your corner to support yourselves and Bo. once you get there is a big, it's a daunting task.
Yeah, that was like the hardest part because we were on like the Hasbro wait list for a long time before we could get in and see a neuro here and just kind of navigate the system here. But everything, I mean, I got to give it up to Rhode Island. Like their healthcare is so they all communicate so well with each other that I
Nice.
don't understand why, and not everyone does it that way. But the neuro is in communication and has notes on the same platform as her occupational therapist and her feeding therapist, and everyone kind of keeps things, talking. And so that if something comes up that someone's worried about, then I get a call being like, "Hey, we should come back in and do this," or and it like that keeps things just updated and present, and that way we don't have to be calling 8 different doctors' offices and making sure we're following every T and I that they wrote down.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is nice when you feel like you've got a team supporting you.
Yeah.
So what's next for August then? Like
Oh,
where do you see yourself in 5 years from now, 10 years from now?
that is a great question. I think that and any parent will probably say this, is that when they jump into parenting, you give yourself to this tiny being that needs so much of you, and that is exactly what I did. So I'm taking and I'm rebuilding parts of myself, I think, that I neglected, and
Mhm.
trying to find where I want to be in the next 5 to 10 years, just rebuilding. And I would love to create a career full of passion and excitement, and really lead, show I don't know, create something I'm super proud of to show Bo, like, this is, you can do just about anything that you want. I was doing some acting stuff in LA, and now that I'm here, it feels a little bit different, but I'd love to, I still practice and audition and get back into that. And I like to write silly kids books, so maybe I'll release one of those, and just have some fun with it and find that spark.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think I have a feeling that there's some stories that you've got that you could easily tell about life in general that would be great for children's books. That may not be stories that are already being told, because I feel
Hmm.
like sometimes we get into this area and there's books, 25 books on the same topic. I have a feeling you could branch out and and
Yeah.
create something.
And we love story time. Like, I think that is something that it's a nightly routine for us, that we read a story or two, and we it's like a great way to wound down, and you get connected. I was just talking to her about this because I was like, what is your favorite part of a story? um for me, I think sometimes you get really attached to the characters, but I love the adventure, or like the imagery that they paint. But for Bo, she's like, I love the characters. And so we're talking about her learning to read. I was like, if you can learn to read, then you get to meet so many characters in this world, or in different worlds, and kind of fall in love with it. So I think with story time, there's so much opportunity to kind of bring in new characters, or new morals into a story that isn't just like right in your face, but kind of like weaved in an artful way to kind of lead kids to new perspectives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. It's true. And I mean, I've been an avid reader all of my life. I think I feel like if I don't read before I go to sleep at night, I can't properly go to sleep at night, kind of a thing.
Mm.
So I fully get that and appreciate that. Before I let you enjoy your weekend, please tell me, what is your absolute favorite part of parenting, Bo?
Such a great question. It changes.
Yep.
It changes. It totally changes. My favorite part changes with every age. Um, right now, I think one of my favorite parts is when she surprises me with her words. Not like the conversation, or just like an idea, or her perspective on something. I am just like getting to know, because she's already a person, she's going to
Mhm.
grow into herself. That's how this works.
Yeah.
And so like getting to know her. Um, and then I think there's moments where, parents work so hard and she shows her appreciation in little moments, and like finding that is and feeling that is also super nice. So I think, yeah, there's so I could go on for another whole podcast, but like just getting to know her, she's finally a kid and I'm just getting to know her as herself. And
Yeah.
yeah, I did have a moment where my, Bo like ripped my sister a new one because she picked flowers out of somebody's garden, and that's against my rules.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
can pick flowers, but not out of someone's garden.
Yeah.
And my sister called me and she goes, "So I can see where she's getting your influence." And I was like, "Yeah."
It's a proud papa moment, right?
Yeah, it's like it's so small, and you'd think like it's not a big deal, but like no, someone grew those flowers. Those aren't yours to take, and like just like showing her little things, and like my sister wasn't thinking about it. She was just like, "I got oh look at this pretty one," and like what was like, yeah. So yeah, there's so many moments, but I think just like not quite shaping the person, but giving her outlines to let her shape herself. Yeah, my favorite part.
I love that. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today and
Yeah.
for sharing your parenting journey after Bo's arrival with us, because as I say, I don't think we take enough time to talk about the journeys that aren't smooth and stereotypical and straightforward.
Yeah.
And there, as you saw in the NICU, there's lots of parents with lots of babies whose pathways are not what we predicted. And so some understanding about that is really appreciated. I thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sam. I really enjoyed this conversation and sharing that part. I haven't talked about it in a while, and it felt good to recognize it in a different light.
Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. I'm going to be fully transparent here and tell you that I had such a great talk with August when we first recorded, and we learned about becoming a parent and all of that. I forgot to ask about his new baby, and so August agreed to come back, chat with me so I could throw this all together. Welcome back, August. Thank you. Can you tell everybody about your newest endeavor and your brand new baby that literally just launched June 1st?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me back to kind of tell you guys a little bit about this. So, a couple of months ago, I was on the podcast Father Netics with Jamil Mears, and we just connected in such a cool way and stayed in contact afterwards. And one day we were just kind of shooting the shit on Instagram, talking about different ideas and concepts. And I had this concept of kind of learning from our bad examples, and how we can I think as people get kind of lost in a bad example or in our own perspective in a moment, and how if we tried to almost look a little bit more forward and think about our future self and how we wanted to do that, how can we learn from these examples? Because everyone talks about a good example, set a good example, but you can learn from a bad example just
Sure.
the same way you can learn from a good example. It's just a choice, right? And Jamil heard this, and I mean, he kind of ran away with it, and then which was amazing because now I got to work with him. He's my co-host. We go through different examples that we find, parent or otherwise, to just kind of shed a little perspective from two people who have very different points of view in this world and unique points of view. Jamil's an adoptive dad. He's also a queer dad, and with his husband, and I'm a trans dad and an adoptive parent as well. And so that is just like its own unique thing, right? And I think that, and this is just from my experience, but there's a lot of intention behind parents who really choose to be parents, and intentional parenting. And so I think that's how I lead in my life, is to try to lead with intention on how this might affect others, but also how I want to see myself in a year if I handled it properly or not, and not let emotions lead. It's not perfect, but we try.
I love that. So you decided, okay, we're going to launch this podcast. This is what it's going to be about. So is it a series of the two of you just doing some research, finding some bad examples, and then presenting them to the other person and talking about them? Is it people coming on telling you about the bad things that they did and how they learned and grew from that? How does the format unfold?
So right now it is we both bring two stories to the podcast. We kind of tell them, and it's fun because either Jamil and I have not heard the story before, so we gotta get to experience the shock and awe in that moment, and then give our 2 cents, right? And I think in the future, bringing people on to talk about their bad examples, whether they led them or they learned from them, and or they did them and then learned from them, or if they were thrown into the middle of it, is kind of the goal. We've had one guest so far. I believe that episode drops later this month. And that was more about just like examples for them to kind of give their 2 cents on too. But yeah, I think it's that's kind of it for right now. Evolving.
I, and that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to evolve. You start with a spark, and you don't get a bonfire until you've been putting some wood on the fire, right? Wood
I
on the
love that.
pile.
Start with a spark, but you don't get a bonfire until you cut some wood. I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah. There you go. See, this is my wisdom of the day. Where can everybody find it?
So it's on iTunes, it's on YouTube, it is on Spotify, and it's on iHeart.
Okay.
So all the podcast apps, that's where you can find it. We also have a social media, Certified Bad Example Podcast. You can find it at my Instagram as well, at August Insta. It's all linked right there.
Excellent. And it will all be in the show notes for this episode. Like I say, I needed to bring you back and make sure that we spent just a couple of minutes telling people that they need this in their life. Because at the end of the day, we've all heard people make poor decisions, ones that we would have made differently if it was us. And we all learn something by seeing someone else do something different than we would do it. So maybe it's teaching us perspective and everything else. So I think it's a phenomenal concept. Truth be told, we're recording this on June 2nd. I haven't listened yet, but it is fully on my radar to do so. I listen to Jamil's podcast all the time. I was a guest on his show as well. So I will tag you and Jamil and Certified Bad Example and all of it in the show notes.
Thank you so much, Sam. I appreciate you bringing me back to talk about it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Happy Pride.
Happy Pride, everybody. I hope you have a phenomenal Pride Month.
Thank you. I want to take a moment to acknowledge the stolen land I live and work on, because where we are matters. I live in Burlington, Ontario, Canada, and I carry colonial lineage. That's something I hold with both awareness and responsibility. The land stretching from Lake Ontario to the Niagara Escarpment and beyond has a history that runs so much deeper than the city I live in. It's Indigenous land, rich with story, relationship, and meaning, and my community benefits from that legacy every single day. This territory is held under the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, a powerful agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy, the Ojibwe, and allied nations to share and care for the resources of the Great Lakes region together, peacefully. I also want to specifically recognize that I'm on the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. As a queer person, I find myself coming back to the land as a teacher, and one of the most profound things it teaches us is fluidity. The gender binary and heteropatriarchy didn't emerge from this land. They were brought here by colonizers, the same people who tore Indigenous children from their families, their homes, and everything they knew. Those children were then sorted into one of only 2 rigidly prescribed categories and forced to perform a version of gender that was never theirs to begin with. That violence was deliberate, and its echoes are still very much with us. But the land has never operated in binaries. It is diverse, layered, beautifully complex, and sometimes wonderfully unpredictable. It holds all of us, every path, every identity, every way of moving through the world. Every organism, every spirit has a purpose. That's something I try to carry with me as I move through my own life and growth. Thank you for joining me today on the Becoming Baby Ready podcast. If you have a story that you'd like to share, or you know someone who might, if you're a professional who works in the capacity of helping people start and grow their families, and you identify as being a part of the 2S LGBTQIA plus community yourself, then please don't hesitate to reach out. We always have room for more stories to share, and there's always more learning to do.